Well, as South Africa continues to grapple with high unemployment rate, thousands of unemployed graduates and young people have resolved to join the social development queues in search of the 350 social relief of distress grant. Government has extended the social relief of distress grant to March 2024. Let's get more on this. We are now joined via Zoom by Michael Currin, who's the acting Director General of GCIS and government spokesperson, to respond to these reports. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Thanks, Flo. Michael Currin here.
Currin, apologies there. All right, so of course, it's quite a sad situation that we see here where, we see so many young people in the state of desperation. Let's talk about government's response to this then.
Well, Flo, I think there's no modern society that would be happy that those we invested in a developmental state. When you think about the early years of democracy and creating an opportunity for young people to go to school, get better health care than historically, that as the life cycle has gone on, they're unable to get into decent employment. So I think from the side of government, it's a really serious concern. It's a serious concern that young people aren't finding the opportunities that they want. They do get through education and then end up not being able to find jobs. So I think the first issue is it's not in a situation that anyone in government, and I don't think any of our social partners would wish to see. I think the second thing, Flo, is that whether we like it or not, the situation we find ourselves in a very, very poor economic growth can only be resolved by interventions that grow our economy. And consequently, economies grow, and the impact of the economic growth would be that we have a higher demand for employment, and that definitely would benefit young people. So I think the second concern, Flo, is that we have to understand that, for example, today's budget, a pro-poor budget, but that a budget that looks at how we strengthen economic growth, because that growth will benefit young people as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's not ideal, but at the end of the day, we are looking at a series of programs that would firstly grow the economy, and secondly, that those ones that are customized to young people themselves. And I mean, the other thing is that we have to also accept, as ideal as it is not, South Africa remains a society that invests in a social relief of distress. So where young people, or any South African for that matter, finds themselves in the kinds of situation we are in, our government has made the choice to have in place that degree of social net, or that social wage, as we like to refer it. It's not ideal. Nobody says it's ideal, but at least it ensures that there are those kind of safety nets in place from a government that understands that growth has to happen. But while that's happening, there need to be other interventions.
Well, the issue, of course, of unemployment, especially for thousands of graduates actually across the country, has certainly been ongoing. Let's talk about, what the plan there is. I mean, over the years, these young people have complained about a myriad of issues, and one of them being, and I think it's quite an embarrassing one, why do we find that graduates are complaining about red tape? They're complaining that just to even have access into those workplaces, into the workforce, is a problem on its own. And the issue of, red tape keeps coming up.
Yeah. Well, Flo, I think South Africans must take comfort that the president and his government has taken the issue of red tape busting very seriously. I mean, I think let's start, before we get there, let's entertain that one fundamental barrier. As a young person, I was unemployed for 1 year. So no young person watching this interview today must think that, I'm speaking because you've got a job, you're okay. I really understand what it's like to be desperately looking for work, particularly if you're from a background where, you don't have the means at your disposal. So I think the first thing we need to ask ourselves as a society is that call made by the president. A lot of our red tape, so to speak, it's this attitude of saying we can't take a young person if they don't have experience. So if you remember in the State of the Nation, the president made that social appeal right to business, right to organized labor, right to civil society and to government, that the first hurdle is to get young people into work so that they can actually get those opportunities to get experience. So, for example, we have the presidential, the Youth Employment Initiative, where 50,000 young people you saw already in that. Now, that might not necessarily lead to a job, but Flo, the important thing is that you're starting to get that critical experience that puts you up a ladder, So I think that's a very important initiative, and we need to all find every opportunity. I mean, GCIS, as small a department as we are, on an annual basis, we have 30 to 40 internships. So the whole internship program, the program where Home Affairs has the initiative to digitize their archives, a very critical national service for making our society more efficient. That's going to give young people. So there's that.
Mr. Currin,
yes, Flo, please come in.
I'm sure you heard, of course, now that the grant has been extended to 2024, and I'm just interested to hear what your reaction to that is. I mean, that just sort of paints a picture of this reliance on this particular amount, and by the youth mainly, who are indeed queuing for this 350. So I'm sure it paints a sort of bleak picture of the situation that we have so many young people wanting to queue for this queue, and the fact that government has responded by extending it. But there's been some criticism. I heard one opposition leader saying, this shows that people just, simply don't have work. So we're going back to our conversation about the issue of unemployment.
Well, Flo, it's a perfect catch-22. Unless we grow the economy and get rid of those red tape obstacles that you referred to earlier, and do meaningful things from the State of the Nation, I'm sure people could see, even business leadership are quite encouraged by the fact that we are seeing some of those initiatives. Obviously, the ESCOM matter and the energy crisis is offsetting some of that growth. But we do have a range of economic interventions aimed at breaking those red tapes, infrastructure build, special employment initiatives, including the expanded public works program, which remains in place. So I think it's not ideal. I mean, there's nobody sensible who'd say, well, I think it's okay, just stay on your 350 forever. But I believe, and I hope that viewers can perhaps consider this, is that these measures are aimed at getting us into a place of, while these tough times are going on, while we've got this economic recession, while we haven't got growth, or not recession, but this economic tough time and these headwinds and inflation, while we've got these tough times, there are these kind of interventionist measures that break that cycle. And I honestly feel confident that if we had this hopefulness, this national hopefulness around trying to re-stimulate our economy, making sure that the huge billions of investment that have already come out of the international investment conferences, that they start having that knock-on effect into the economy, it becomes what you call it's not a negative cycle, it's a cycle for positiveness, It's a virtuous cycle, as they say. And I think for me, it's about our attitude as a nation. We've got to start saying, as the leadership of society, government, business, labor, that we understand the need of our young people, and it impels us to make those interventions that we need to make in order to fast track our economy. Because unless we can grow our economy, we're never going to be able to employ. And if we never employ, we're not going to generate the tax revenue over a period of time that we need to be able to create more employment and offer more services. So, but I mean, I don't think also, Flo, we have to remember is within that basket is that we do have free education, we do have free higher education, which is part of that. So as the economy grows, we do hope that those skill sets that have been released from the tertiary will start finding their home in the economy,
All right.
But I think it's a joint effort, and the more companies join in the internship program and in those work opportunity programs, I think that would be a lot better, Flo.
All right, Michael Currin, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for having a chat with us here on SABC News, sir.
I'm on transit, so I appreciate that.
Thanks for taking the time. All right.